Y'all ordered a fresh plate of drama, right? Because you got it. It's the motherfucking player haters. Ooh, yeah. Well, if you ordered some drama, here's a fresh plate of it, okay? Because we got it. We got 3 teams right now that are bidding and fighting for that last coveted playoff spot. And this is going to get interesting. Let's get right into it. Happy Labor Day, first of all, to everybody. Hope you guys are enjoying your time off from laboring if you are. And if you're not, well, hopefully you won't labor much longer today. But let's get into it. We got some drama for your mama right here. Freshly ordered over this past weekend. And you guys are already well aware of it, but let's talk about it. Walker loses his playoff bid a couple of weeks ago, has to claw, fight, scrap, and it almost looked like heading into the weekend, there was nothing that he was going to be able to do in the last week because he was going to lose by such a large margin against the Hitman. Well, Walker rose from the ashes and pulled out a 7-2 victory against the Hitman and thus projectiled him back into the top 6. How did that happen? Because we've seen a fall from grace in Nick. Now, he's not out of it. He's the other team that we're talking about that's vying for that coveted spot in the top 6. And you say to yourself, well, wait a minute, isn't there just the 2? No, not really. Josh is also in that fight, and it just so happens that he's facing Walker this week. We'll talk about that in a minute. So, Nick's fall from grace. We got to go back a few weeks, and Nick likes to point at the fact that his fall from grace might have been a trade where he acquired Corbin Burns. And ever since then, he basically has faced loss after loss after loss. I don't exactly remember when that week was. However, Nick has faced loss after loss basically since week 17. His last win in week 16 was just by 6-5. Then he lost to Jesus 7-5. And then in week 18, he lost 7-5 to Shane. Then in week 19, he faced off against Eric, lost again 7-5. These little chippy 7-5 losses really started to take its toll, especially last week when he faced against me and lost by the biggest margin of loss in week 20 of 9-1. And then this previous week, he had an opportunity to face off against Jason and try to regain some ground. And unfortunately, he took another loss, 8-3. So I'm assuming that around that time when he acquired Corbin Burns, I thought it was just only about 3 or 4 weeks ago. But we've seen that Nick has lost several weeks in a row. And I have dubbed this to be the Lord's work because in order for us Floridians to acquire the coveted Franklin, we have to get rid of the one team that stands in the way of it coming back. Now, obviously, the odds of it staying up there, even if he's in the playoffs, he faces off against 5 other teams, and it was looking like he wasn't going to be holding on to a first or second bye week spot anyways. But here we are, week 22, the very last regular season week. And Nick is in a position where he's facing the most difficult task, and that is trying to get back into the playoff hunt himself. Now, let's quickly look at week 21 because week 21 held a little bit of drama as well. Last week, I faced off against Shane. Shane and I went into Sunday Night Baseball with a few stats that were teetering, and the score went 8-3. Shane destroyed me in home runs. He got 11 home runs, and this is going to be a narrative that every team that faces him will have written against them. Home runs are his. Corbin Carroll has now finally regained his rookie sensational year and is back. And then he also has, lest we forget, Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, guys like Bryce Harper, Corey Seager. The list can also be added to George Springer and Jose Altuve. But Corbin Carroll shined for him brightly last week, and it seemed a little bit like poetic justice, if you will, because I started the season off with Corbin Carroll and traded him away for Bryce Harper, and now somehow he has both of those guys because Eric traded Corbin Carroll away, and now look at where we are. And I would probably say that the trading of Corbin Carroll away may have been somewhat of a demise for Eric as well, because he didn't acquire what Corbin Carroll has ended up being. Um, so, yeah. But I was able to hold on. I was struggling for weeks there to find, stolen bases. I was very thankful for James Wood, who has lost a lot of power stroke, it feels like, but he has definitely been able to provide stolen bases when available. And he got me 3 in one day, and that proved to be the best for me. Now, what really kind of hurt myself is there were a few days where, full disclosure, all last week I was involved in filming with a crew out in Jacksonville. And there were several days where we were just balls to the wall, moving equipment, going from set to set, scene to scene. And I was a part of the camera and lighting crew. And if you know anything about that, you're always on the move. You're always being asked to do something. And that was me last week. And I got it coupled with, I have a rolled ankle that I was dealing with, and I re-rolled it during the second night of us shooting. And then I also came down with a cold that you guys probably can hear the congestion in my voice. But anyways, there were some nights where I was unable to focus on fantasy baseball. And I missed out on some Tommy Edman stats. And then one night, we came home really early in the morning, and I was unable to change my roster. And Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was not playing, and I could have moved Josh Naylor up and grabbed some stats. Or maybe it was one of the nights when Josh Naylor was, I don't know. But Josh Naylor had 4 RBIs in one night, and that would have, I ended up winning RBIs, but it would have been helpful. And I think that there was another night. Anyways, you know, when you have life going on around you. But thankfully, Nick Castellanos and Brent Rooker were my support staff when it came to home runs and RBIs, because I got nothing from Devers, who was dealing with a shoulder injury. I have been playing without Ketel Marte, and it looks like I'm going to go into this week probably still starting out without Ketel Marte. And who knows how well he's going to perform. And then one of my biggest, it feels like, non-contributors was actually a very good contributor for me, and that was Anthony Volpe. He was able to get me some stolen bases and some RBIs this week, but the power just doesn't seem to be there for him most weeks like it was when he was on Eric's team. Anyways, moving on. I've had really good pitching performances from Schwellenbach, and I'm really the future is bright for that kid. It's crazy to think that the Braves might have two Spencers that are dominant in the pitching uh, world. And last night, it's an unfortunate thing, but you're going up against one of the most potent offenses, and your offense can't do shit. Granted that Nola was up there, but Nola pitched, I want to say, 100 pitches while Spencer had only pitched like 70 pitches going into the sixth inning. And it's an unfortunate thing. And then you get bases loaded and the Braves don't capitalize. They can't do anything with it. So, you are what you are in this league. And it's just an unfortunate thing that they are injured and they're going in to the end of the season probably going to not make it because of the injuries that they've sustained, because the Mets are clipping at their heels, and apparently so have the Cubs. I haven't really looked at the playoff race, but I heard their name mentioned last night. Anyways, this does not have to deal with week 21. Last week, we also saw Ray and Benchwarmers face off. This is a potential playoff matchup that quite frankly, Josh wanted to at least get a better result, and he didn't get it. Ray was able to get 8 home runs, a lot from Bobby Witt Jr., who's coming back into form. And Pete Alonso woke up, again, the Mets, and Julio Rodriguez. But he got a lot of run support from a Cubby, Nico Horner, and that really was able to keep him relevant, if you will, last week. But Ray they split, the batting stats, but Ray's team just blew up in terms of stolen bases. She went and grabbed Caballero, who from the Tampa Bay Rays, and he's just been known as a stolen base guy, but Bryce Terang as well steals bases, and he got 3 for her last week, but she got 10 total. And she had a really good pitching week as well, 2.37 ERA. Josh is pointing that out, that she had one of her best pitching ERAs of all season. I don't really know what she's had all season, but Sean Manaea definitely had some good pitching performances for her last week. But yeah, moving on. Again, we've already mentioned it. Nick took a tough loss that, just really he could not afford, and he didn't win one batting category, and for the most part they weren't really close. He was down by 3 in the home runs, 4 in the RBIs. He had less than 3 stolen bases. He only had 2, and he only took 3 of the pitching stats, but with a 5.7 ERA coming from Jason, he himself had a 4.42. So Jason and him just both had really bad weeks in terms of pitching. Mason Miller and Ben Lively, Belozo. I don't know if these were a couple of these guys, were they waiver wire pickups? Maybe the Belozo guy. I don't know. But that may have cost Jason in the long run. But it was more costly for Nick. And I haven't looked at it, but I think Nick has moves. So I don't know why, he won the ERA and the whip, but he might have been able to really gotten some stats had he grabbed a pitcher for possibility of a win and a quality start. I don't know. There's not much out there on the waiver wire, but when you're watching a 5 ERA guy, I won't mention any names, but there apparently is somebody out there that is worth grabbing to pick up stats like strikeouts and stuff. So and the potential for a quality starting to win, because he did end up doing actually very well against the Texas Rangers. I won't mention any names though. Rally Monkeys, again, we mentioned him. He did what he needed to do. He faced off against Hitman, and Hitman does not have a roster that is one to just roll over. Matt Olson had a really good week. Ezekiel Tovar has proven that, in my opinion, he was the better shortstop over Carlos Correa. Now, Carlos Correa has had moments where he's done well, but I think Ezekiel in the rankings next year will prove to be a better pickup. And look at this Jackson Merrill, a guy that is a rookie, having a great season, and this kid's going to be highly sought after next year. Believe it. I mean, his stats are, he's got 21 home runs, 16 stolen bases, so he's potentially going to have a 2020 season. And he hits in a pretty decent lineup, and if he maintains that shortstop outfielder eligibility, that's something that we all covet. Let me check my time here. 15 minutes. All right. The biggest margin of victory last week was one that Brian did not want to be a part of. He was one of the teams that was in that hunt for a playoff spot, and last week sealed his fate 10-1. It was an ass beating. Mandalorians, they have a team, but again, when you start to look at the overall numbers of 4.54 ERA, it's not going to play up in this league for the most part. But when you have a 5.83 ERA in Brian's team, you're not going to win much either. But the offense was really there for Scott last week, and it has been for weeks. Manny Machado, Dansby Swanson shined last week. Remember I said the Cubs are finding themselves, it feels like. And Jackson Churio, this rookie, he didn't perform early on. He got dropped by Jason, and then now he's been really relevant, and he's been a huge factor for this season, and he's ranked in the top 90 players right now. And Brian, unfortunately, was trying to grasp at straws, and his cubby and Ian Happ helped him out, and Jaron Duran helped him out, and a recently acquired player, I think before he ran out of moves, was Eugenio Suarez. He has moments too, but that batting average is just hot garbage. But Brian didn't need to lose by 9, and he did, and that basically sealed his fate for this season, and he'll be in the running for the consolation prize. And last but not least, swinging and missing faced off against Jesus. This was a close matchup. These two boys just went at it offensively. 26 home runs between the two of them, 16 stolen bases. Troubleshooters just blew up with Stout, and Jazz Chisholm came back healthy. Willie Adames, look at that. That's a name that, shouldn't have traded away, but he had a fantastic week for him. And Yordan Alvarez, look at that. Another name that's fixing to come back to haunt me. 5 home runs, but only 6 RBIs. You would think with 5 home runs, you would have got a little bit better result. But again, Eric has also understood that he is now playing upset, and not really an upset week, because Jesus as well will be in the consolation moving forward for the rest of the season. But he does get to play a role this week, meaning Eric in quite possibly my placement in the playoffs. First place and second place are by no means secured between Ray and I. It's just really cool that I don't think we've ever had it this late in the season. Maybe early in the season we have been first and second before, but not this late, coming close to the playoffs and having the potential of going into the playoffs of both being first and second. That is factual, that we have never done that before. Now, the other interesting fact as we look ahead, hold on. I'll come back to that. Let's look at week 22. This is a drama-filled week. Eric looks to play upset for myself and pulling me back down into potentially even 4th place. Yes, that is a possibility. I know that 11 games back for me is Jason, but if I lose 12-0, there is that potential that Jason could go into at least the top 3 if Eric does beat me, such like that. It is possible that these close scores could put me in a 12 to nothing, so there is a potential. I just want to put that out there. I'm not unaware that that is the case, but there is also the potential that I could not be in the top two and have that first bye week, thus guaranteeing that I would at least be in the top four to end the season. Another matchup to watch, Trippin' Billies versus Tortured Baseball Department. Again, this is another one that Jason is looking to try to solidify his spot in the playoffs, because there is just that small margin that if he was to lose 12 to nothing, that he may fall out, because Nick is also clipping at his heels. But I don't really foresee that being a thing. I think both of these teams are well balanced in their pitching and their hitting. And I feel like that, if anything, these two teams are just looking to vie for a tie, or one where Shane, who is now 2.5 games back from myself and only a game and a half back from Ray, where he's looking to at least gain enough ground to put himself back in to second or first place. This is the matchup that is going to be, in my opinion, a co-matchup of the week, but it also is the matchup of the week because it involves two of the three teams that are bidding for that sixth spot. Josh is fifth, Walker is sixth. These two teams are very, very familiar with one another, and they're very close in their rankings. Josh sits a game and a half above Walker. A game and a half. That's it. And he's only 2.5 games above Nick. These two teams right here are going to be full of dialogue this week for a number of different reasons. Their rosters are their rosters. Both of these teams have 60 moves. They have used all 60. They have none. So there can't be any streaming that's done. The only thing that could happen is if, I guess, a player on their injured list comes back. But their roster is what they are. So it's going to take very good management on both of these teams' parts. And it really is going to come down to matchups this week. When you look at Walker's team, he's got a little bit of depth in batting. Ryan McMahon and Michael Harris make up his bench, if you will. He's got no backup first baseman. No backup first baseman. We just saw Freddie Freeman come back from an injury. He's got no backup first baseman. I don't know if I can say that enough. He's got no backup shortstop. That's two positions that are on his roster that if one goes down for whatever reason, he is out of that position for the remainder of the week. That could be crucial because we know baseball and we know that at any moment they could bench a player. They could, hold off. It looks like the Dodgers are fixing to lock up their division. They might not want to play Freddie Freeman as much. They might let some other teams play. Whereas Josh, you look at his roster, he's obviously got a surplus of shortstop and Nico Horner and Gunnar Henderson. He's got a backup of first base and Spencer, and he's got Jake Berger, and we haven't seen the Berger GIF come up because Jake Berger is who he is. He's going to hit 15 home runs in 13 days, and then he won't do shit for a while. But this might be one of those weeks where he finds himself again. And then, not to mention, one of Walker's favorite players, Max Muncy, is now on Josh's team. And he dropped him, he being Walker, earlier in the season when he was on the injured list. We know what Max Muncy can do. And could that be a huge deciding factor in this matchup? Both of these teams have a lot of pitchers, solid pitchers. You look at Josh, Peralta, Verlander, Bryce Miller. Alex Cobb just pitched almost a no-hitter the other day, and Logan Webb. Hunter Brown has turned things around a little bit. And then, of course, we always know that Walker's going to have one of the best pitching staffs this side of the equator, with guys like Garrett Cole and Pablo Lopez. Max Meyer, I guess, is Max even pitching? Max is pitching. Oh, wow. Okay. He hasn't done that great since being sent back down to the minors. But these guys have good pitching staffs. So this is going to be a very interesting week because they are separated by a game and a half. I think both of these guys are putting their hands together not to destroy each other, but to equal each other out. You take 6, I'll take 6. Let's call it a day. Because on the other end, they don't have to face off against Nick. Brian does. And they're hoping that Brian has the week of his life. Right now, we're seeing Corbin Burns pitch. And if I'm seeing what I'm seeing, it doesn't look too good that he's pitching against the White Sox. Right now, his whip is infinity or insufficient. I don't know what that INF stands for. I've never known, but I guess it means infinity. What does it mean? Like it's just a non-number. So apparently he's walking people right now. But this is going to be very karma, if you will, or ironic that the team that traded him, Corbin Burns, he now faces off against. Will Corbin Burns be the deliverer or the redeemer, if you will? Because Brian's looking to just try to be or do the Lord's work, as I have so dubbed. And the Lord's work is keep Nick out of the playoffs. And the people in front of you, Brian, have done the Lord's work. I myself pat myself on the back for that 9-1 victory. Please continue spreading the Lord's will and tearing this man away from our playoffs. We would appreciate it. And I know for a fact that Walker and Josh would also appreciate it. They have their own battle to deal with, but you, sir, you could literally be the biggest disciple, okay, for this week, okay? Last but not least, we can't forget that Sean will face off against Jesus and Scott will face off against Ray Ray. Ray's matchup is not insignificant either. We just saw what Scott did, and Ray could get knocked out of at least that second place if she takes a huge loss from Scott. Shane would like nothing more than for that to be factual and his brother to give him a little bit more of an assist than he already has in this season. I think it was Scott, or did he get Sean? Who's the one that got? I think it's Sean. Sean, look at that. Already a 3-run home run from Willie Adames. Look at that. Look at that. Could have really enjoyed keeping him on my team. But we're moving on. So we've already got baseball. Look at that. Corbin Burns already giving up a run, 27 ERA. So, woo, things are heating up already. Everybody's looking at that Corbin Burns matchup this week because it looks like he might pitch twice this week if he's pitching on a Monday. So, what did I say I wanted to get into? I wanted to get into something. I can't remember. So last thing that I'll mention here. There is a possibility, because we've already looked at it, that the 6 teams could potentially have 3 teams that have never won and 3 teams that have won in our championship. How cool would that be if that's the case? That because Nick could possibly be in the playoff mix as well. We know that it's going to be Benchwarmers, Rally Monkeys, Nick. One of those 3 teams is going to be in there because there is absolutely no way that Brian, Jesus, Eric, Scott, or Sean are making the playoffs. They are out. It is down to just the placement of these teams. This is awesome. It's very interesting, but it's cool to me to think that if Jason isn't that team that gets booted all the way out, because yes, Jason, you're only 7 games ahead of Nick. You yourself could be removed depending on the final scores for this week. Because again, you're only 8 games ahead of Nick. It would have to be a blowout. Scores would have to fall where they would. So your playoff spot is not secure either, but we're really looking at Josh, Walker, and Nick as being, the biggest teams. But anyways, I think it's cool that 3 teams that haven't won it will be going up against 3 teams that have won it. So without further ado, my time is up. Have a good Labor Day. See you guys in playoff week coming up. Ooh, it's getting good. It's the motherfucking player. Hey,